All right, chicken finger subs in the top of the map here in the red, and Mini, which is my alias, otherwise known as Tandordraco, down here in the blue. And now this is a bonus match here that we put together just for fun to kick things off. Otherwise, I won't be playing these unless there is not enough signups in a particular week. So just wanted to get one started here to make sure we had enough free plays. So I'm intermediate level, give or take, and chicken finger subs is somewhere between beginner and intermediate. I think should definitely be solidly in an intermediate now if he's active. So, but we both have not played in weeks at this point, I do remember. Thanks, Lindana. I'm just using, I got some more emoji slots that I hadn't realized, so I just filled them temporarily with like default Twitch emotes, so check them out. There's 5 of them for followers, and there's 4 more of them for subs, so we'll be adding some emotes as they get made. Looks like Mini here is going for a... 1 second. Okay, I have an air vent to my right, and it's blowing in my face, and it's driving me nuts. Anyway, back to the game here. So, yeah, Mini going for the Tier 2 first opening, and Chicken Finger Subs is going to try to punish it with a quick attack with the moles here. Mini only has squirrels to defend, and 1 skunk has just popped out. So with the squirrel, lizard, mole timing, 1 Warren is going to go down, and Mini's in a lot of trouble here. Chicken Finger is going to back up. That's a lot of value already. And it looks like Mini's going to pop some wire here to try to defend. Pop another Tier 1 Warren down. Both skunks are out, and skunks and wire together are pretty decent. Of course, moles are a classic counter to wire. Wire is pretty off meta. I remember I picked it just because I wanted to experiment a little bit. But it's not useless. It's just tricky to get good value. But Chicken Finger is going to attack in here. Plenty of skunk gas going down. One of the skunks is going to die here. But I think the skunk gas has gotten enough value that Chicken Finger is going to have to pull back. He's rallying his units here to go in for another attack. I don't think another attack is going to be helpful here. I should be able to hold this one just fine. There are some toads here, and they get some good connections and roast the lizards. So this attack is held even better. So when you're like rallying from the front, with like Tier 1 attacks like that, each time you just rally up with the same number of warrants and attack in, it's like diminishing returns. Each attack is successively harder and harder to pull off. So here's a counter push with the skunks, and once that MG goes down, if the MG can go down, okay, the MG does barely go down, and a couple of warrants, so this should be enough damage. I believe I'd take it here. Just throwing down some more Tier 1 to spend my money. And Chicken is going to drop another MG to try and hold, but that third attack in was just too much, and my counter push did plenty of damage. So with the skunks and plenty of squirrels, if in doubt, more squirrels, right? That's going to be about it. It looks like a kind of a risky all-in here just at the end in case I don't go for the push, but I am definitely looking like I want to push here in a second. All right, there we are. Okay, and I'm gonna kill this silly vent. I'm actually gonna close it. Okay, that ought to do it. Going into game 2 here. chknfngrsubs in the red up here at the top of the screen, and Mini in the blue in the bottom left. I'm going to order these games from... We're going to end with the Arilou versus Urbane Olive. Arilou and Urbane Olive are the champions from the last season of the Premier and Intermediate divisions, respectively, which solidly qualifies Urbane Olive as Premier now. But that's going to be the last one of the stream. We're working up to it, but hopefully all of these games are going to be a fun re-entry into Tooth and Tail here in 2023. What year did Tooth and Tail come out? Was it 2016? 2018? It's been around for quite a few years now, and it still has a player base. Most of the players are kind of waiting for the next patch, which is still coming soon. So I'm hoping that will kind of re-energize it. It'll have the first 2 new units in multiplayer since the game's release, I believe. The new patch will, so that will be super exciting. We're just kind of keeping things going until there. chknfinger is going to go with a couple of lizards and then the squirrel here. And I'm going for the 2 Warren expand. Yet some of us still want to be playing new patch or not. And I guess the way I see it is if enough people want to just play, then they'll find each other and we'll play some games. Tooth and Tail is 2017. Nice. All right, 2017. I was close. So this is year 6 of this game then. And we have an old matchup here between Squirrel Toad and Squirrel Lizard. Right now, I think I would favor the Squirrel Toad, but it comes down to micro and positioning, and lizards definitely have a lot of opportunities for things like backstabs, which is... Oh, here comes the lizards from the side here. chknfinger's commander actually went down here, so he can't focus fire, which means like 3 of the pigs and a Warren all took almost fatal damage, and a couple of lizards got away, so that actually ended up being really bad for Chicken. If he had been able to kill a pig or 2, it would have been worth it. At this point, I'm going to be pushing in with this Squirrel Toad. So squirrels engage first, then once the army is sponged up, the toads get pretty decent connections there. A couple of pigs are going down. And I'm going to back up to my additional farms. You can see a wire here, watching out for lizard run-bys from that angle. So Chicken had scouted in and had his lizards positioned on the side there, and it looks like right before he died, he rallied them in, which it's a clever angle to come from, but unfortunately because the lizards didn't get a single kill, it turned out to be a little bit of a mistake. Lizards are a lot better when you have your commander there to target fire. Lizard Harass specifically is better when you can focus fire on 1 pig at a time. So with my economy, it looks like I'm going up into some tier 2 here, getting Falcon Skunk. Chicken is grabbing some farms here to try to catch up in eco, as well as a little bit of Falcon. Selling down tier 1, especially the lizards there, in order to try to greed up. And I like the MG here, kind of protecting the Warrens and the path to the new farms. So this makes a lot of sense from Chicken, trying to hold while he gets up into some extra farms. There's some more tier 1 Warrens. Only 6 squirrels at the moment, so definitely very far behind in army. And let's see if I will attack in. It looks like I will, and so he sees the army coming and he taps, knowing he won't be able to hold against it. Alright. This is a best of 5, so if I can take this one, that will cinch up the series. It looks like I'm going for a... Is this like a kind of an Usen style? I think if that were falcons instead of cams, that would be more of the Usen style where you turtle up into owls, mass owls. Chicken here is playing a more aggressive poke style. Very different ideas, and we'll have to see how they clash here. As long as the game doesn't end early. Usen was a player that popped into the scene for a bit, won of the championships, and pretty quickly got up to high intermediate level with his style. He must have been coming from another RTS, so I had some of the fundamentals down already, but really liked using these three structures and owls. Kind of turtle up on 2 bases and get into like 3 owls and then move out. It was pretty interesting timing. All right, let's see the openings here. 8 farm 2 Warren, 8 farm tier 2 opening. So if the tier 2 is scouted right away, it can sometimes be punished, especially with moles, but there are no moles in this game, so as long as Chicken Finger is careful here, usually you want to have 2 tier 1 Warrens started before that first skunk is paid for, just to be super safe, but it looks like Blue here is not going to be teching up. Instead, what is the idea here? Okay, that's an arty that is dropped here. Now, Chicken might be able to push in with 6 squirrels and a skunk or 2 against 6 squirrels. There could very well be a little bit of a push timing here, but I am dropping some more tier 1 warrens to get more squirrels up, and then there is an MG here to help hold. Not to mention, the arty is on the high ground, so it's actually going to be pretty tough to get vision of that with these ground units. You can't really siege it without vision. And then it looks like I'm already dropping the owl here, trying to deny scouting of it, but Chicken Finger is going to see the owl. Let's see his response. He's already getting ferrets to try to poke stuff down. Skunks are out. And it looks like I'm throwing up a balloon up here. That must have gotten started before the arty is up, because now I can't actually get up to the space. And the arty is up. Chicken Finger is going to back up here real quick. Another owl goes down. There is an MG here to watch for lizard run-bys, but I don't actually think I need to worry so much about that. Chicken doesn't have lizards or cams or anything, but I don't know that. So, being extra safe here. Basically, I've got all of this fighting force up here at the front, and I know that if I get attacked from the back, I'm basically screwed, because I'm being really risky by dropping all of my tier 1, especially against a ferret player. I'm really trying to get these 2 owls paid for right away. It looks like Chicken is dropping some balloons. I don't think the balloons are actually the best choice here. They don't do that much versus owls. Like, mice can't kill them, true, but they don't really do that much besides sniping a few mice. It might be better to either try to get up into wolf and mass a later army, or attack before, you know, like this is pretty strong spot, but it's not that strong until the owls are out to support it. The first owl is out. A third one has been bought here. So no tier 1 from Mini. Mass balloon here from Chicken. And he is going to try and use the ferrets to see if he can pick off this arty. Now that he has a balloon, check his vision. He can actually see. And it looks like I sell the arty. I think selling the arty was actually a mistake there. A pretty big mistake. Because now for a second, I only have 2 owls and 1 balloon. And I'm actually incredibly vulnerable for a second. And so I'm spamming down balloons and squirrels. And I'm going to try to push in with my mice to kind of hide my vulnerable state here. Alright, so balloons are up and I'm a little bit safer here. Balloons in tier 1. And my third owl is almost, is started anyway, almost halfway done now. I don't think this game can turn into a standoff. Despite the owls and the balloons, the two army compositions are just far too different. We're going to have, at some point, we're going to have just an explosive meeting here. It looks like Chicken is trying to snipe these balloons. And I think he's going to get one. All right, I sell one, and he's going to get the other. No, I sell the other for less. All right, all right. That first sell might have been a misclick, but it's all right. The mass squirrel here is a pretty good idea, actually. The ferrets might not be super useful at this point, but better than nothing. Skunks plus mass squirrel is, for right now, a pretty decent way of fighting the owls. He's going to try to snipe with the snakes, but the snakes do get picked off. There's a tag on each of the owls here. Clearly he was trying to focus those, which would have worked pretty well, but I think 3 owls is just too much at this point. He does have a higher economy, but owls spawn mice for free, so I don't really think that matters. It's one of the few units that you can use to really negate being behind an eco. So I'm going to go from a flank here with 3 owls worth of mice just moving right on in, trying to overwhelm, and I'm using what few squirrels I have to pick the balloons off, and I'm going to back up. And Chicken taps. I will take that one. All right, I'm gonna move on real quick here. Let me edit this in just a second. The next series we're gonna look at is R22 versus Jason Blade. Just moving the replays around here. Hey Protocam, how are you doing? Welcome into the stream. Alright, we're gonna get started. R22 versus Jason Blade. Here's R22 in the green in the top of the map, and Jason in the blue in the bottom here. R22 is an old retired Premier player, I believe, and Jason Blade is a newer beginner. So I think we should have to favor R22 here, but let's see how this goes. Hopefully these are entertaining games. It looks like completely mirrored decks right here. Squirrel, Mole, Falcon, Cam, Skunk, Wolf. So very meta with the Squirrel, Mole, Falcon, and then a tanky tier 2. We just have both of the tier 2 options in the Skunks and the Cams here, and then a Wolf follow-up. So we'll have to see how this mirror matchup goes. I've been doing well, Protocam. It's been a while since I've done much tooth and tail, so I'm running this kind of off-season. It's not quite a show match or an exhibition match series or anything. It's just a set of kind of semi-official organized matches for between seasons, kind of the off-season of the championship. I don't think there has been anything quite like this in Tooth and Tail, at least for several years. So I'm excited for it. It works well with a smaller active player base, since we're just going to have 3 or 4 best of 5s every week. I'll cast each weekend, Saturday or Sunday. So stay tuned for that. I'll be announcing it in my Discord, as well as in the Championship Discord. So if you're in either one, you'll be able to see, or if you follow me on Twitch here, you'll be able to see when I go live with this. More Tooth and Tail content for the win. Yes, awesome. All right, R22 here is going up into Cam Squirrel. Jason is responding with the Falcon Squirrel. Falcons are a little bit of a trickier tier 2 to open with. I generally like to recommend for beginners to open Cam or Skunk instead of Falcon. Just because Falcon play can be, it's more situational, it's a little more volatile, depending on the micro, and you know, it's good defensively, but again, it's a little bit tricky, but we'll have to see here. Both players are going to take an expansion, and it looks like R22 is going to set up for cam trapping or cam harassment here. Having said that about the Falcons, they can still be strong as a first tier 2 for sure. It's just a little bit trickier to make them work. So we'll have to see. R22 is getting into his second tier 2 Warren here. He's got a farm started and the skunk Warren. Jason is going into just mass squirrel right now, starting a farm as well. So the mass squirrel, it's either to be safe or it's to put on some pressure. We'll have to see. The cams are going to be rallied to the side here to snipe a Warren. Okay, they snipe Warren and they back off, so that's nice value for sure. Not the end of the world, but it's definitely an impact, especially early in the game like this. Sounds good, Proto. Thanks for lurking and stopping by. I definitely look forward to some more. I know speedruns are kind of your thing, and that's super cool. I have yet to even finish the campaign in this game, let alone try any speedrunning or anything like that. All right, Jason here is farming up a little bit more aggressively, getting into a little higher eco. R22 is teching hard into Falcons now, and with the Skunks, I'm actually favoring R22's army quite a lot. Skunks are good against Mass Squirrel, and that's exactly what Jason's got. He is getting Skunks of his own here. I would critique slightly. This placement is really risky. A Warren of this value you generally want to have kind of between your pigs, where cams can't really get to them, and away from the front, so that if you get pushed back onto your base, you want to be able to defend where your tier 1 Warrens and your pigs can tank. Pigs shooting and tier 1 Warrens tanking, with obviously units popping out right there, is really the strongest defender's advantage you've got. But Jason Blade, if he pulls back to that really strong defensive within pig fire and tier 1 Warren tanking spot, he'll actually have to sack this tier 2 Warren, so it really limits his flexibility. Both sides here continuing to farm up a little bit and going into the Wolf. R22's Wolf is about to get paid for, and Jason Blade's Wolf not far behind it. Jason Blade is sitting his army out in the middle of the map, trying to keep R22 off of his forward Warrens. He's going to push in here. There's a much greater squirrel count for Jason, but the skunk gas is going to kind of equalize that. R22 also has a greater falcon count, so with the skunk gas and a little bit of defender's advantage here, R22 is going to hold that fight pretty one-sidedly. We had a bit of an army trade, and then Jason kept losing units there. I think that is mostly down to the mass squirrel versus skunk gas. Skunk gas is kind of the great equalizer in squirrel count. Nice skunk snipe there. If you can keep your opponent's skunk count down to 0 or 1, then your mass squirrel still works. So R22's got a wolf on the way here, and Jason Blade's wolf is started as well. Jason Blade is up 1 farm. I think the main thing is going to come down to, at this point now, R22 with the higher DPS of a couple of cams and the greater number of falcons. Falcons really start to get good at 4 or 6 of them. 2 falcons is not generally that great, especially with the wolf. You want to be able to buff your expensive tier 2 units. So we'll have to see. I like the comp better for R22, but otherwise they're playing a pretty close game here. I like Jason Blade did get into a little bit higher income here. A little bit of pre-gas going down from both sides. R22's wolf is out, so this is a bit of a precarious position for Jason to be in. The wolf is out for Jason, but it might be a little too late. R22 with his skunks and greater numbers of falcons and cams is going to push on through and take game 1. Let's go to game 2 here. R22 in the green, definitely the favored player in this match. And Jason Blade in the blue, putting up a pretty good fight here. Some really solid meta play out of Jason. He's going to still stick with the meta Squirrel, Mole, Falcon, Cam. Drop the skunks for some snakes, and then the boar. This boar-snake combo is a pretty good one, pretty powerful here, especially the boar, a very solid unit. This boar snake play, one of the players that comes to mind is Sasha. She plays or has played in the past with this style, and it's pretty effective. R22 here also going with the boar as the tier 3 of choice. Keeping the skunks, they worked out really well for him last game, and then dropping the moles in favor of pigeons. Now, this early game is going to give Jason Blade more opportunities to punish greed with the moles, or be greedy without fear of mole attack from R22. Looks like a 7 farm safety here. Although just having scouted, I don't think that was quite necessary, but that's fine. R22 going with the standard 8 farm single opening here. Anyway, so the pigeons, you lose a little bit of flexibility in the early game, or push potential, but on the flip side, when you get boar versus boar, the pigeon boar is going to outperform the pigeonless boar, if that makes sense. R22's boar with pigeons is going to have a lot greater fighting potential against a boar that doesn't have pigeons over here. Also, pigeons are a classic counter to snakes right now, so in this patch. So we'll have to see. Jason Blade with the warrens are floating a little bit out, kind of in the middle of nowhere here. If you pull them back a square to where the warrens hug the pigs, you can kind of stick them all together really close to within pig fire, especially this kind of forward one. If you get them all lined up nice and neat, it's a lot better defensively, because you can sit your army on top of them and they tank shots without being so easy to pick off. Also, the pigs can fire and tank as well. Same thing with this tier 2. So I think just a little bit of better warren placement will give Jason Blade a lot more of a feeling of security and safety at home. You can defend more effectively, and you don't have to worry about cam snipes and similar things. Expands going down. This one's a little bit of a ninja at the moment. It's not going to be too hard to defend once Jason can get a beefy army out here in the middle of the map. But for now, it's not been scouted, so. R22 going for a base of his own, as well as the skunk tech. Jason going into the mass squirrel from last game, as well as cams. The cams are going to be a pretty effective opener, especially against skunks. Especially against skunk pigeon, I think cams are going to do excellently. However, the skunks will be able to counter Jason's mass squirrel, so it kind of goes both ways. R22 looks like he's looking around, trying to count food, looking for the expansion, and there it is, 2 farms down. Jason is a little bit ahead in eco. So R22 is going to even the score there as well. He is teching into a second tier 2. Now, pigeons are going to be nice here for a little bit of cliff abuse. They give you flying vision, so you can kind of put pressure on and get your skunk gas laid down. Looks like none of the pigs are actually within range of that, so that's pretty good for Jason. And he is going to attack in here, kind of filtering the skunks from multiple angles. So filtering the squirrels in from multiple angles. So the skunks are going to have to retreat in this open field, and he's going to kind of kite back. Cam on cam here. And you see the blue cam is able to get on top of the skunks here. Pigeons aren't as helpful. But R22 does hold, countering Jason's mass squirrel pretty effectively. So there comes another fight. This time the blue cam does go down. R22 able to get a little bit better positioning, and with the sustained fighting, the pigeons are starting to get their value. As the cams trade, R22 is able to keep his skunks alive, pushing forward, which really shows the power of his comp and of how he's using it. So I really like the approach we're seeing from Jason Blade, the kind of macro expand style, the meta, the way he's teching in a meta style and then kind of going for a bit of macro play. But R22's compositions are just a little bit better, and his micro and decision making just a little bit better. So that's what we're seeing there. All right, game 3, R22 in the green here on match point, and Jason Blade in the bottom. Both players are swapping into the Badger. R22 with the skunk variant of the meta here, as opposed to cams. They have been working out really well. I do recommend to beginners to go mass squirrel. If in doubt, more squirrels is generally better. Unfortunately, the exception to that is when you're playing against skunks. Once skunks are out, mass squirrel is no longer good. So we'll have to see if Jason Blade can adjust, maybe lean a little bit more on the cams and skunks in his composition. It looks like he has not found his opponent yet, so that was a little bit of a safety MG there, just to make sure he's not getting rushed. Makes a lot of sense. I think he's going to have to narrow down. That's where his opponent's at. Obviously, we can see that that MG is not necessary since R22 is just teching, or is just ecoing up to 8 farms. But here we go. Jason Blade does finally scout, does find his opponent, and see that he is safe. No rush is incoming, so he should be able to sell that MG and drop some Warrens here. Now, R22 seeing the MG, knowing that he's a little ahead on the tempo of his eco. Eventually, the pigs are going to be the same, but for right now, R22's economy is just slightly ahead, so he can safely get his tech started without the fear of getting rushed here. So Jason is going to respond with tier 2 of his own, which is excellent, an excellent choice. And he's going to grab an expansion as well. Going to rally his squirrels up to the front here. So tech and an expansion from blue. R22 is grabbing a third tier 1 Warren, so we'll have to see if he wants to expand forward or maybe try to put on some pressure. Okay, so no, he's going to actually drop the Badger. So we're going to see a 1-base Badger here from R22. He has just enough units to be safe here. 3 squirrels with more on the way and a skunk out, whereas Jason has 6 squirrels and a cam on the way. So not really going to be able to punish just yet. And he's going for some eco here. He might be concerned that R22 is going to try to attack. That's why the MG goes down, so not a bad decision. But here he goes to scout and really see what his opponent is up to. Okay, so he sees the units moving out. It is only 4 squirrels, so I don't think he needs to panic here. That was a bit of a diversion from R22, trying to keep Jason Blade from going back and scouting the tier 3. And so far, it's working. Jason Blade playing it safe, keeping his MG up, getting more tier 1, and farming a little bit. He needs to actually get in and scout. There we go. Sees the Badger finally. And let's see what his response is going to be. It might not be a bad idea if he had seen it a second sooner to sell the MG and try to go for a push. But at the moment, the Badger is halfway done, so he's just going to have to try and hold. We might have to see a lot of MGs go down. Another tier 1 Warren. R22 does have the skunks, so the mass squirrel might not work out here. I'd love to see from Jason. Honestly, I think the last chance he's got to hold for right now is to throw down a bunch of MGs, but it's tough. R22 has this 1-base timing. He's going to set a little bit of pre-gas up. Jason is going to force a sell on that Mole Warren, which is nice, but the Badger is out here with a couple of pigeons. Not a lot of pigeons, to be honest, so a lot of this is going to have to come down to the skunks keeping the squirrels down, but here goes. The squirrels are engaging, the cams get out there and are trying to take stuff down, but the Badger revs up, is going to be able to come in and clear out that MG and a Warren. I think R22 is just going to be able to push through and take game number 3 with a classic 1-base tier 3 timing. GG's. All right. I am going to move around the replays, and we're going to go into our third match. This is going to be JAKOBI versus WinterLoad. I'm excited for this one. I think it should be fairly close. I will give JAKOBI the edge here in my prediction. JAKOBI is a very strong intermediate, and WinterLoad is a very strong beginner who should be considered intermediate at this point, I believe. So I definitely favor JAKOBI, but let's see what WinterLoad has up his sleeve. He's always able and willing to bring some really fun ideas. Known for his toad shenanigans, a little bit of a memer. I'm excited to see the ideas we're going to see here. I'm going to set them both to red, and we're going to get started with game 1. All right, WinterLoad in the far right here in the green, and JAKOBI on the left side of the map in the yellow. Looks like JAKOBI is running that super meta skunk variant badger deck that we saw last game. Squirrel, mole, skunk, falcon, badger, pigeon. WinterLoad here, running fairly meta, especially for him. He's got squirrels and cams and falcons and skunks, an MG to stay safe, and a wolf here as the later game tech. Wolf is a pretty good answer to badger on paper. A lot of it really comes down to micro and the timing of the tier 3 and the rest of the composition around it. But, you know, it definitely gives you options, and it potentially can counter the badger. The idea is you wolf buff your falcons, as long as they have enough support, and the absolutely insane DPS of falcons with the wolf buff can gun down the badger before it can rev up, or gun down the badger's supporting army before the badger can rev up. So you get in there, you DPS down a lot of the badger's army, and then you back up to break the badger's rev, and you've just taken a better engage there. That's kind of the general micro idea, but let's see if we get up that far. Right now it's an 8 farm, 2 warren opening, kind of the standard opening here. If there was ever a standard opening build, it is the 8 farm 2 warren. Everything else I kind of think of as a deviation from that. So here, for example, WinterLoad's selling one of those to get into skunks a little bit faster. That's a little bit of a tech rush. Meanwhile, JAKOBI is going to grab an expansion, that 8 farm 2 warren expansion, which is like the macro variant of this standard opening. WinterLoad is going to expand as well, having scouted JAKOBI's expansion. So I like WinterLoad's position here. He's safely getting tech and able to match JAKOBI's expansion, whereas JAKOBI is going to have to tech a little bit later. Now he's going to respond with a double tier 2, so you can be a little bit greedier there. Okay, so he's actually going to sell one. Never mind. Just 1 tier 2 warren, and then a lot of farms. WinterLoad, let's see here. He's going to drop a second tier 2 of his own, make that a third. So he's trying to respond to the 2 tier 2 that he scouted with a third tier 2 of his own, which is a good response. But now let's see what he does when he scouts JAKOBI's economy here. JAKOBI's going to go into another tier 2, just the 2 there, and mass farms. So WinterLoad, upon seeing the 4 farms, should head back and just farm up on his own here. He'll be slightly ahead in tech, but he can sell that MG and farm up a little bit. Once he has some of his tech units up, he could actually sell down and rebuy one of those squirrel warrens if he wanted, but he doesn't have to. He can just kind of get his army up, farm up a little bit. JAKOBI here getting some tier 1 up again, just to make sure that he can actually fight. Falcons aren't that great on their own, so he's adding squirrels and a little bit of pigeon here. So with proper setup and micro, JAKOBI's army is going to be very strong. WinterLoad has definitely the more standard looking army. We'll have to see from here. Both sides floating a little bit. So, okay, WinterLoad getting a little bit more falcon, which I like. Like I said in the last series, 4 falcons is definitely more than twice as good as 2 falcons. So run that math. The critical mass of falcons that you really want just begins to get good at 4, and then 6 is when it's really good, and beyond that it starts to get insane. Whereas 2 falcons is just not that great. JAKOBI here dropping the badger. Still has those 4 farms on his expansion. WinterLoad also drops the wolf. Both players have the same idea at the same time, is get that tier 3 up. WinterLoad is just a tier 2 warren ahead, and JAKOBI is a farm ahead. So here he is farming up here. This is pretty defensive macro. When you drop a tier 3 and then farm up, you're setting up for either a much later push instead of a regular timing push, or you're just going to play defensively with your tier 3 and try to eco. if you want to go for a timing push, ideally, instead of those farms, you drop a tier 2 Warren and then some tier 1. Kind of like what WinterLoad is doing here. He's only grabbing the 1 farm. He's got MGs to stay safe while he is grabbing his extra tier 2. Badger timing with Mass Mole is deadly, deadly. Yes, so part of the reason for that is Badgers work very well on a timing push style, which is kind of what JAKOBI's going for. He weakened his timing push with some of the farms, but it's still going to be pretty powerful. The Badger itself is pretty insane. And then, yeah, with the Moles being a really strong tempo unit, they're a strong unit in general. They also tank for the Badger. They have good DPS once you're up on top of your opponent, especially if your opponent's trying to target the Badger. They also are just a tempo unit that pops out quickly for this kind of push. WinterLoad is going to have to sell down a few of his farms and kind of panic here. It looks like he's going to actually sell down his farms just to have money to rebuy his army. He might have to sack this mill. He's going to try to push in here with his buffed Falcons and chew up the army. He can't quite go for the Badger, and he knows it, so the Badger's revved up. WinterLoad is going to have to... let's see, he's kind of engaging here after sacking that mill. The Badger's rev is broken, but JAKOBI has just done too much damage, and WinterLoad's Wolf Falcon Micro wasn't quite good enough. He wasn't quite ready for that timing push there. I think with more MGs and more tier 1 something. But JAKOBI does push forward and take him down. Hello, welcome into the stream. Anybody who's just tuning in, we are on the 3rd match out of 4. This is WinterLoad versus JAKOBI. JAKOBI just took down the first one. After this match, we've got... the premier match between Urbane Olive and Arilou. That is the most show match of the of this first week, as those were the 2 champions from their respective leagues. All right, JAKOBI versus WinterLoad, though. We're going to get into game 2 here. WinterLoad in the green in the left of the map here, and JAKOBI in the yellow on the right. JAKOBI's going to go with the same deck again. Worked from last time, and he is playing to win. So let's see how this same style meets up with WinterLoad's different approach. WinterLoad playing a lot more defensive this time with balloons and wire, and behind that it looks like he'll be able to tech up into owls. Badger is kind of the classic counter to owl, so unless we see some kind of imbalance in the game earlier on, somebody pull ahead, that is, if both sides just macro up normally, JAKOBI's comp should be better. The Badger kind of eats up the mice as they funnel in one at a time. In fact, the owl mice actually are... It's almost like a buff to the Badger because they allow the Badger to rev up on those free units before the rest of the owl's army can engage. So you definitely can fight Badger with owl, but it's at a disadvantage. The Badger has a lot more flexibility there. So we'll have to see what WinterLoad has in mind. So far we have that standard 8 farm 2 Warren opening. JAKOBI is putting his Warrens really far forward, which is extremely risky in the early game, but it's obviously because he's going to go for this expansion, so these Warrens will be close to his front expansion. So he's pretty hard committing onto being able to expand here, and I don't blame him since his initial base is on the low ground. If he was besieged here, he'd have to fight up onto the high ground, so trying to move forward right away and take this expansion safely makes a lot of sense. Let's see what WinterLoad wants to do as a response. He's not going to be able to punish without moles, really, so it looks like he's just going to grab his own expansion here. In the chat here, Makanshin. It's going well. I'm trying to get back into weekly casting of Tooth and Tail. With this organized through the Championship Discord, we're doing weekly casual matches. It'll be 3 or 4 best of 5s every weekend, either on Saturday or Sunday. This is the week 1 of that, starting 2023 off. Freka, hot take, Structure Owl is difficult to play well. I agree. Structure Owl, the concept the basic concept is pretty straightforward, but it is difficult to play well, I agree. WinterLoad is setting up a wire wall here, and you know, I actually like this. This is a relatively small choke in this map. There's a tiny path around. Scratch that. There is not. I was just checking to see if this was solid. Nope. There's not really any ways around this one choke. JAKOBI does have moles and pigeons, which are both a counter to wire. Moles because they can melee them down, and pigeons because they can heal the units. But if WinterLoad stands on top of his wire, which he's not doing, unfortunately, if WinterLoad were to stand on top of his wire, this wouldn't be able to happen. But as it is, JAKOBI is going to try to push in here. WinterLoad is going to have to stay back. The skunks are going to keep WinterLoad back behind his wire. The balloon is going to get up here. Another balloon dropped down. So if the balloons are able to go up, they're going to be pretty good. But that one is going to have to be sold here. JAKOBI is going to try to target this balloon down, but that's actually a little bit of an overextension. All of his tier 1 is eaten up by the wire, and his skunks were the only things that got in, and they were actually killed straight up. So that was a really solid hold by WinterLoad here. He's going to drop another balloon. JAKOBI might be a little bit overconfident with his counters to the wire, thinking he can just push right in, and it actually does not quite work out. That's right. I remember Makanshin. Yes? Welcome back. Structure owl difficulty depends on the map. Yeah, this map is actually working pretty decently for this build. For the wire specifically, I'm liking this setup from WinterLoad. He has a lot of vision with these balloons, and obviously was able to hold off that first pressure with the wire there. I would love to see WinterLoad, right after these farms get up, I'd love to see him try to tech into owl. Neither side has really dropped the tier 3 yet, but here we go. There's the Badger dropped down right away. Badger with plenty of pigeons is going to be a pretty strong fighting force. Now, here's the problem with WinterLoad's position. He's got a pretty defensible line here, and he can get into Mass Owl, but the problem is he only has this is on WinterLoad's side, 3 bases. There's one owl. Whereas JAKOBI has 5 bases, 4 if you don't count that one. Kind of 4 bases versus WinterLoad's 3. So JAKOBI has the more economic side of the map, and if we get to a bit of a stalemate, that's going to be good for yellow. So it's just going to come down to WinterLoad teching into Mass Owl. I think he's really going to need at least 2, if not 3 owls. I'd love to see triple owl or 2 owl and Mass Falcon. 1 owl by itself really is not going to cut it. 1 owl can only really harass. It's not enough to be a strong fighting force. You can only really do harassment. And against a Badger, that really nullifies it completely. The 1 Badger is a pretty hard counter to single owl. So I would love to see a 2nd owl dropped from WinterLoad. I don't know if he thinks he can get away with it, but I think you have to get away with it for it to work. Having said that, he does still have a good DPS army here. Underneath his balloons, he's got gone up to 4 Falcons and plenty of squirrels. The Falcons are going to be currently the key to countering the Badger. That's about the only thing WinterLoad has to fight directly against a Badger, is those Falcons. JAKOBI here is massing up the eco, grabbing a few more pigeons. I'd love to see a lot more pigeons, actually. The standard pigeon number for a Badger player is 9 pigeons. And against the wire, I think even 12 pigeons would be definitely called for to really make sure that Badger stays alive as it's going to plow through all of WinterLoad's defenses. Yeah, hiding, when you have balloons like that, you don't actually need to hide your tech so well, but it's fine. WinterLoad doesn't want JAKOBI to know what kind of tech he's got. Of course, the first owl is out. There's the 2nd owl on the way. That 2nd owl is going to be a really important piece of WinterLoad's composition here. And then once you've got 2 or 3 owls out, you want to start selling down your squirrels and getting falcons instead. The mice and the squirrels kind of fight for the same squares, and so they're not quite as effective. And the mice kind of do some of the tier 1 role anyway. So as that 2nd owl is paid for, I'd love to see WinterLoad actually sell off 1 or 2 of the squirrel warrens and drop falcons instead. Freke in the chat here, the Owl Master, says, when you play Mass Owl, you win by more Mass Owl. And people usually stop Owl production too early. They scale the best. Yeah, so WinterLoad has WinterLoad has the 3 best scaling units in the entire game. That's Owls first, Falcons second, and Balloons third. You could argue to swap the Balloons and the Falcons, but my point stands here. There's more Falcons started up here, but again, you can actually sell down the Squirrels and go into more Owls, and then once you have enough Owl Falcon, you can actually sell down the Balloons. Keep just 1 for vision, because you're going to need to push out onto the map, kill JAKOBI's absolutely insane economy. Look at this, 21 farms. JAKOBI's going to be getting into Mass Falcon Badger, which is going to be a really strong comp against what WinterLoad has. Now, WinterLoad is grabbing this 3rd base, so if he can actually defend, JAKOBI might be over-farming and cutting out an opportunity to have starve farms. JAKOBI's only starve farms in this case would have to be one of these 3, or grabbing this base, or this campfire. Actually, he has 2 campfires, so there's options. Never mind. I take it back. He's got enough options here, but WinterLoad is kind of going to have to defend here. There goes another Squirrel Warren. I don't think that's not necessary, and it's not the best addition to his army. JAKOBI has Skunks, which are going to really counter the Mass Squirrels, so you really want more Owls or more Falcons here. Balloons do scale well. Yes, Mass Balloon is... first of all, Mass Balloon is impossible to scout into, and when you really get into Mass Balloon, you can't even rally your army into it effectively because it'll instantly snipe your commander. Yes, so the classic counter to Mass Balloon is Mass Tier 1, yes, because many balloons can overkill the same squirrel. But the thing is, once you get enough balloons, they scale insanely because they snipe the commander. Not to mention being the counter to Mass Falcon. So it depends on how it goes down, I suppose, but JAKOBI is going into triple Badger here. He's got plenty of Falcons. He's got a lot of Pigeons, which I love. And WinterLoad is just refusing to go past 2 Owls. He's getting more and more Squirrels, which I'm just going to say it objectively here is the wrong choice. Unfortunately, it's just not what your composition needs. They don't scale very well, especially against Skunk Gas. Also, if you're going to be sitting on 2 Owls or more, you may as well be throwing your Mice Waves at your opponent to get some value. Those mice can get value over time if you want them to, but you have to actually throw them in at the only potential loss of a momentary loss in defensive power. But you see here, even just putting pressure on this forward Warren means JAKOBI has to pay attention to what's going on at the front of his base. Yeah, 21 Squirrels to Owls. You'd be much better off with like 4 Owls and 3 Squirrels. More balloons are going up, which means WinterLoad is going to be kind of safe behind his wall here. And JAKOBI has grabbed both campfires, so we're really not actually seeing a starve game potential here. That's, at this point, because JAKOBI's army is so insanely powerful, WinterLoad's only chance is to somehow survive against all odds and then go into a starve game. But here we go, Mass Tier 1 with the Owls and everything, all of these Pigeons pushing in. The Mice are going to get eaten up by the Mole Pigeon Skunk, and the Badgers are going to rev up on everything here. All 3 Badgers still alive. I can't even see them in the carnage, but I see the number at the top. Pushes right on through, and JAKOBI takes game 2. We're going into game 3 here. WinterLoad in the green down here. Let's see if he can take a game, especially with Boar. Boar is a super solid, straightforward Tier 3 unit. And JAKOBI running that same Badger deck, like I said, playing to win, trying hard a little bit here in the yellow. We did see 2 different styles of Badger from the first 2 games. Game 1 was a Badger 1-base timing, and Game 2 was a Mass Eco, Mass Badger, Mass Falcon kind of thing. It was a totally different approach. Let's see what JAKOBI's response to WinterLoad's deck is going to be this time. WinterLoad going with the Toad. I love to see WinterLoad doing Toads. And then the Boar. We've got Boar, Toad, and Skunk, which is all three standard sources of AoE. The Tier 1, the Tier 2, and the Tier 3 of AoE here. So if JAKOBI wants to go Mass Squirrel and Mass Squirrel Toad or whatever, WinterLoad should have the response to that. Hey, welcome in, Rex. How you doing? Lately I have been a fan of Toads as well, just because they're fun. So let's see. It looks like WinterLoad is doing a bit of an MG rush. He's waiting for that to finish. JAKOBI is going to know something's up because he's scouting absolutely nothing in his opponent's base besides the 8 farms. So this is a rather strange MG rush, but there's the Warren, and he's going to show his commanders, so I think JAKOBI's going to know something is up over here. A Warren does go down, so that's some value already. I like how WinterLoad is grabbing squirrels here, so he doesn't have to rely on those MGs. I will answer the chat in just a minute here after this. Looks like it's going to come to a head pretty quickly. I like WinterLoad's idea. I don't know if it's going to be quite enough. I think he just needs to keep massing squirrels. Okay. WinterLoad's going to, or JAKOBI's going to push on up. The moles do get on top of the MGs and both of them go down. MGs have really high DPS, but actually are really bad at tanking. The stats and the math seem to stay otherwise, but the way it functions in an actual game, you're just going to have to take my word for it. All of my years of casting experience in this game, and by that I mean 2 years, MGs are not tanks. They are DPS. So you kind of need your army to actually be in just like mixed through the MGs and slightly in front of them. You want to keep your MGs alive as long as you can through that fight because they just keep getting value by their insane DPS. So JAKOBI does push back that rush, and WinterLoad is forced to go back home and reset up his Master Tier 1. And JAKOBI is going to take the opportunity here to get into that Badger, the Tier 3. If WinterLoad goes for a Squirrel Toad timing push here, JAKOBI might be in trouble. Like, he's going Pigeons already. He only has 6 squirrels. That's it. WinterLoad could already win with 12 squirrels against 6. He could just attack, move, and win the game. So let's hope he goes for the aggression here. I'd love to see it. I think he knows that's what he's got to do. Let's go. JAKOBI only with the extra pigeons here. He finally drops a 3rd Squirrel Warren. He's going to have to add some moles or something, right? WinterLoad is waiting for his units to pop out, and he's going to go for it. JAKOBI needs to hold until the Badger gets out, but I just don't think he can do it. The Toads are going to be able to crush these Warrens here in the front. Also attacking from the high ground. I guess there's pigeons, so the high ground is less important. WinterLoad keeping his Toads in the back. They're actually just tanking, which isn't the best. You really want your Toads to go off on those Warrens, but I think it doesn't matter. WinterLoad is going to be able to push through anyway with his superior squirrel count. Let's see if that Toad can connect. Nope, but squirrels are going down. WinterLoad's commander goes down. A lot of Warrens have died and 2 pigs, and the squirrels are still pushing on in. He needs to kill even more. The Badger is out, and he pulls back just in time here to see that Badger, but the Badger doesn't have any support. It's too much. The Badger can easily clear this many squirrels. JAKOBI is down to 2 Warrens of squirrels and 6 farms. So if WinterLoad can mass up his squirrels just enough and actually get his Toads to connect, he can fight this Badger, especially since the Badger is injured without any pigeons. WinterLoad is not quite decisive enough here. He has the right idea, but he needs to kill that Badger. And JAKOBI, all he has to do is keep the Badger alive, and he straight up wins. Here goes the Toads, pushing on up. They do explode pretty inefficiently here, but if he can corner that Badger, he can do it. The Badger is not revving. Let's see him catch it. No, it's going for the water. WinterLoad. He's trying to focus it, and it goes down. WinterLoad has taken game 3 here. All right. The greedy Badger after holding that rush. Let me catch up with the chat real quick. Fan of Toes, I suppose. Do I still do TnT replay casts? I will. If you send me some replays, I can cast them. I will do that tomorrow, in fact. I'll pop a message onto the Discord if anybody wants to send me their replays. I'll do a replay cast tomorrow. How's that sound? As far as another RTS, very unlikely that I will get into another RTS anytime soon. They're a huge time sink, and I'm just unlikely to throw time into that right now. I'm playing some Skyrim. I'm going to play Jedi Fallen Order also. I'm going to play through that game on stream. I've got my eyes set on Valorant, on Dwarf Fortress. I got a lot of games I want to play that unfortunately are not RTSs. So, welcome back, Arilou. You have not missed your games yet. We're going to go into Game 4, and right after this, Game 4 and Game 5 of this match, we're going to see Arilou versus Urbane Olive. So, glad you're here. All right. Sasha with some comments about the game. Very nice. And then you've been doing some games against Arilou. Cool, cool. I'd love to see those for tomorrow if you both are down for that. If I get replays from multiple folks, I'll try to balance out how many of each person I do. But yeah, some of that tomorrow. For now, WinterLoad, one last game with some excellent Tier 1 pressure in the green here. And JAKOBI going for the greedy 1-base Badger after holding a MG rush. And just not quite able to survive against WinterLoad's pressure, despite the Toads actually not getting good connections. We actually saw 2 or 3 instances of pretty bad Toad connections, but WinterLoad was able to win basically off of just Mass Squirrel. But JAKOBI with the same deck here, it worked pretty well for him in Game 1 and 2. And I think it would have worked well for him in Game 3 if he wasn't quite as greedy here. WinterLoad with the same deck as Game 3, it worked. I'd love to see the boar come out here. We haven't seen any boar yet today in this stream, so let's see it. Both sides going up to 8 farms. No early rushes. It's a pretty long rush distance too, so I'm not surprised to see no rushes. There's also not any convenient mole rush spots, so. All right, 8 farm, 2 Warrens. JAKOBI not throwing down his second Warren yet. He's actually going to wait for the scout, which is not a bad idea. Not having that second Warren isn't the end of the world, and you can kind of decide what you want to do based on a scout. So he is going to drop the Skunk Warren, the Tier 2. With a map this long, I really don't think WinterLoad is going to be able to punish. Not without moles. He doesn't have moles. There's campfires in the way. There's water. There's a long rush distance. So WinterLoad is going to try it looks like, but I don't see it happening, especially since one skunk is going to do pretty well against Mass Squirrel defending. Now, JAKOBI is also expanding, and considering WinterLoad is going for pressure here, he won't be able to kill JAKOBI, but he might be able to take out this forward mill. That's what I'm seeing here. One skunk is out. So again, JAKOBI is not going to die, but that forward expansion might be able to be taken out. He is focusing squirrels at the moment, which is the right choice. All right, he's going for the skunk here. It doesn't have enough squirrels to finish it off, so it forces the skunk to pull back, but that's about it. JAKOBI holds. And WinterLoad is going to rally and push in again, but this is going to go even worse for him. That Toad definitely not going to go. He is going to snipe the mill. All right. That's something, but WinterLoad really needs to back up now. Yeah, I think killing the mill first would have worked as well. So WinterLoad needs to back up here, and what is he going to go for? He's dropping some MGs, and he's going to go into tech. I think he's playing more defensive than he needs to. He is teching and expanding at the same time, so the MGs are helpful for a moment. But JAKOBI is going for that 1-base Badger. I think he's really not expecting WinterLoad to attack again. Correctly, too, because JAKOBI has those skunks. So this all hinges on WinterLoad getting a good deep scout in. He needs to get all the way in, and against only 6 squirrels, he will be able to. That's what he needs. So now let's see what the response is going to be. Honestly, I think dropping the boar is the best choice. You can't really punish, so just sell your MGs, grab the boar, and hope it's up in time. All right, Mass Falcon, that's not a bad option as well. He did scout the Badger late enough, I guess, that the boar would not have been out in time, so Falcons are a solid call. I really am not a fan of this farm, though. But let's see. I'd love to see even more Falcons, honestly. 6 Falcons would be great here. There we go. Great. Just 1 farm on the expand, it looks like. JAKOBI is setting up for that timing attack. He's got his moles started. He's going to have 6 pigeons, which it looks like is his goal number. I like 9 pigeons with a Badger, but with a 1-base Badger, 6 pigeons can do just fine. And here he goes. WinterLoad is not going to have all of his falcons up in time here. He's just going to rely on Mass Squirrel with some falcons and some skunks. The skunks are going to be helpful against JAKOBI's Squirrel Mole. I think it really is going to come down to how the falcons are able to focus. If JAKOBI messes up, you can snipe the Badger, but that's really not the goal here. You want to be sniping the rest of the army. You kill as much as you can, and then you break the Badger's rev when it gets to be too bad. But the Badger tanks a bunch, is fully revved, and JAKOBI is going to just clear out all of WinterLoad's army, and he's going to push in here. All right. Badger wins the day. JAKOBI takes the series 3-1. All right, give me 1 second here. I'm going to get my last set of replays loaded up here. This is going to be Arilou versus Urbane Olive. I think we have a pretty clear favorite again. Arilou being the champion and potentially the best player in Tooth and Tail overall in 2022. And active enough, I would have to say Arilou is still the best player in Tooth and Tail right now if we had to pick one person. I don't know if that's really fair, but I'm going to go for it. Urbane Olive is newly in Premier, having won the Intermediate League. That qualifies him to go into Premier. So we're going to see... I'm going to reset my scoreboard first. We're going to see what Olive has in mind and how he can hold his own against the champion. All right. Yep, I sure do, Sasha. Here am I. All right, I'm going to start up here. We're going to have the first game cast with my face. And then once we've got a score to show, I'll switch over to that. So here we go. Urbane Olive versus Arilou. Game 1 in a best-of-5 show match. Urbane Olive in the green, in the far left. This is the champion of Intermediate Division from the last championship. And Arilou in the red in the right. This is the champion of the Premier Division from the last championship. So we've got the clash of champions here, and I am super excited to see what Urbane Olive wants to do here. Looks like Arilou is running with probably the most Arilou deck that ever existed. Squirrel, Mole, Mass Tier 2. This is like the most iconic Arilou deck that I know of from when I started back in the Mole patch, or no, right after the Mole patch days. It was the Toad patch. Arilou is also definitely a fan of throwing in the Wolf instead of Snake, dropping Snake and going for Wolf instead. But I think he knows that Urbane Olive is a Boar player, and so the Snake is actually a better choice there against the Boar, potentially, than the Wolf. It doesn't scale as well because you don't get a Tier 3 in your army, but the Wolf loses to Boar pretty directly, and the Snake at least gives you some options to maybe tag. Urbane Olive being cheesy with his moles, man. He did force some cells, and it looks like he's going to go for another here, dropping a mine so that he can fight off this first mole. Arilou's just going to walk around the mine, so I think actually the mine might not have been the best idea here. All right, and he actually gets a hit off on the Mole Warren, so if Arilou has to sell that Mole Warren, he'll get less value. But the mine also died for free, so really I think Arilou is going to be ahead in that exchange. I don't know how much food... how much food do you lose from having a single mole hit on your Mole Warren? How much food... Like, how much damage does a mole do to a Warren, and how much less food do you get back when you sell at that point? Certainly less than 20, though, which is how much... Wait. Mine costs 10. You know what, guys? It's been a long time. How much does mine cost? It's 10, right? So it's possible that was technically pretty even. It's 20. Okay, it is 20. All right, thank you. I second-guessed myself because I was going to say 20 first, and I was like, wait a second, no. Mine is 20, sorry. Same cost as a Tier 1 unit. So, yeah, that was better for Arilou. Sorry, I was thinking the Minecraft mod has more expensive mines. They're like TnT mines, and they are more deadly but more expensive, and I think those must be 30. Sounds like a good time. No! Mines are like the best structure this patch already. That'd be like an April Fool's Day mod patch. Alright, Olive has the boar popping out right now. This might work out really well, actually. He's going to have a pretty solid timing push here. Squirrels with a couple of moles, the boar's out. No, 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 don't wait. Go, 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 go. He's waiting for like a single squirrel. Nah, man. Arilou is pushing out here. He does have snakes. So if the boar go... Uh-oh. We don't want to base trade here. Okay, so if the snakes can tag the badger, I suppose, it's great. But otherwise... Also, the skunks can counter the masked squirrel. But otherwise... Urbane Olive has a much better composition here. He should be able to just win the game straight up at this point. Snake tags, only 3 tags go on the boar. That's actually a lot. Is that boar going to survive? No, the boar's going to die. That's just a straight army trade at this point. So, alright, Urbane Olive chokes at the last second. He was 100% winning that fight, you can see, by a huge margin, and then just choked for a second, and 3 tags got on the boar and it died. I do like Urbane Olive's position. He has an expansion up, whereas Arilou does not. He did sell the boar, though, which I think was a mistake. Unless he's going to go for a counter push right now, I think the boar would have been amazing. But here we go. Arilou coming back with his... he sells the snakes, and he's going to come in with a skunk to try to set up a forward base. Olive sees it, and he's going to attack in through a choke against a skunk. We gotta be careful here to remember the mental state of both of these players. They both are strong tournament players, but Urbane Olive could be intimidated by playing against Arilou, which can sometimes cause mistakes. So here we go. Here's a pretty decent fight. The skunk gas isn't going to get as much value here since it's in an open field, but it's still a tech unit that that Arilou has. So Arilou is able to just slightly win that fight off the back of the skunks taking too long to go down. And he is going to try to target down this mill. Nope, the mill does not go down. So a good hold from Urbane Olive for now. This is really scrappy at this point. I think Arilou is going to overstay his welcome here. The skunks are supply blocks, so it's not going to be any help anytime soon. So Urbane Olive should be able to snipe this mill and then retreat. He's being careful about it, which is good, because he really wants to fight the army here, not the mill. Alright, so Urbane Olive takes another solid fight. Arilou had to sell the skunk warren, so Olive is going to just keep pushing in. He does try to take out that warren, and that was a little bit of an overextension. Defender's advantage is strong in this game, man. You don't want to overextend like that. Alright, and Olive needs to get his army down to this base or it's going to die immediately. Looks like it's going to die anyway. Arilou actually has more than enough squirrels, and Olive has to wait for his reinforcements. So, I mean, Olive has more warrens. He's got 3 of each, whereas Arilou has 3 and 2. So, if Olive wants to do a counter push right now, that might work out, but we don't need to see a base trade. He needs to come home. Both sides are starving exactly identically because they got their 8 farms both on time. So Olive needs to kill Arilou in a minute, or the game is going to be a tie. There goes the army of Arilou. Olive is going to be able to push right through, and both sides are starving, which means no reinforcements. We have 40 seconds for Olive to kill Arilou before he can sell down to get... I think he's done it. I think he's done it. He's going to go for the warrens first, which makes sense. He's got moles, so he can focus down the mill here. Okay, never mind. He doesn't have moles. Are you kidding me? We can kill a mill in 20 seconds, right? Wow, I don't think I've ever seen a game won when both players are simultaneously starving out like that. I don't think I've ever quite seen that. That was really close. Well done to Olive there. Oops. All right, going into game 2. Urbane Olive, our intermediate champion, new to the Premier scene, is up a game here. And Arilou in the red here, still the Premier champion, still has nerves of steel, so I wouldn't worry for him just yet. Same decks as last time, I like it. Neither side really showed their full deck. I'm a little surprised Arilou still has the snakes. I guess they saved him. The snakes, right at the last second, Urbane Olive messed up the micro for like a split second and got his board tagged. And so the snakes technically saved Arilou for a little bit. But yeah, I agree, Shen. That was an amazing start to the series. Let's see what Olive can do next. All right, looks like a little Arilou mole cheese here. A mine is going to get dropped. Okay, and you know what? That worked. That chased Arilou away. I like it. He didn't have to sell a farm. Nobody lost anything there. Just a little bit of shenanigans. Funny thing is, I don't think Arilou really needed to respect that. I think he could have eaten the mine and then sold the Warren and would have been 15 food ahead, but... Oh my goodness, these 2 cheese balls. Oh my gosh, what are they doing? Oh, and Olive actually messed up a little bit there. He was trying to focus the mole. Whew. All right. And Arilou is going to push right across the map here. Olive should be fine, though. Right? I mean, if his commander's out of position, this could be bad. He needs to not be taking a lot of damage on this Warren. No, Olive! He was out of position with his commander for a second. Tooth and Tail isn't always decided on, like, positional moments like that. But, man, that was. Arilou actually gets a lot of value from sniping that Warren. And he's farming up behind. So Olive is going to have to make the really risky decision to counter push or just play from behind. Arilou put on his Nikes after last match. Yeah, he definitely was being a little bit... He was being aggressive, and it took like a split second of positioning and a little bit of micro for Arilou to pull ahead there. 2 little moments, and Olive is going to go with the push here. Arilou is trying to support 2 extra farms, but he was ahead already after a little bit of that. So the moles get cleaned up. Let's see. Olive is able to trade the army roughly... No, Arilou got a better army trade and lost 2 pigs there. So Arillou's still ahead, actually. And he's going to keep putting pressure on. Drop a mole Warren. Olive, you need to not have your commander out away from the fight here. This is awful. If your opponent is sitting in your face with Squirrel Mole, you can't be away because they'll just start sniping Warrens. And that's 1 less Warren that can spit out a squirrel here. The damage that, first of all, squirrels can siege Warrens from their long range outside of Pigfire, which is dangerous enough as it is, but the amount of damage that moles do to Warrens is absolutely insane. Alright, so Arilou does back up, and Olive kills a mole Warren, which is a little bit of counter damage. So he's technically, he's 1 Warren, scratch that. Warrens are tied, sorry. Urbane Olive and Arilou are tied in Warrens, and Olive is trying to farm up on his expansion. He's getting a little bit nervous here about this push, but he should actually be fine. He technically has plenty of army units here to survive. It's 12 squirrels and 6 moles against 9 and 9. So as long as, again, his commander is not at the wrong side of the map when the fight engages, so Arilou can get a good start, then Olive should be okay. Now, Arilou is getting an extra mole here, so Olive is going to have to also drop a mole Warren or really hope that his mines can pay off. And Arilou is scouting for mines at the moment. There's another mole Warren going down. Olive needs more moles. All right, moles are getting on top of squirrels in both cases. Can Olive hold with a little bit of defender's advantage? Arilou has a lot of forward mole Warrens right now, so he should be able to actually kill this base. Look at how fast the moles are going to evaporate this base. Boom. That's 2 swings of every mole hammer, and Arilou should be able to take this. That's just too much damage. Really close fights, but every little fight Arilou has had, he's able to pull a little more advantage out of. Each one he gets a little bit better at. And now he's just way ahead in economy and in eco, and he's going to push right on through. Just to add insult to injury, he attacks while Urbane's commander is gone again. And he is going to even up our series 1-1. Did I say that in economy and in eco? Sorry, in economy and in army. Whew. Chat keeping me honest. All right, going to game 3. We are tied up. Arilou was being too squall there in that last game. I like it. All right, Urbane Olive in the green in the right, and Arilou in the red in the left. I think you've got a point, Shen. If you're playing Squall versus Squall, Arilou is the Mole King. So Urbane Olive played pretty well, and he's a pretty solid Squirrel Mole player. But Arilou was just able to get little edges each time with the positioning, with the engagements, and with the micro, and with the macro decisions. All of them just had little edges here and there. So Urbane Olive is setting up for yet another mole pressure. That's it. He forces a sell. And, yeah. No harm, no foul. Both sides get up to their 8 farms just fine. Urbane Olive is actually, like, microscopically ahead after that engagement. Since one of Arilou's farms was sold and rebought. There's 3 farms building right now versus only 2 on this side, so it's really, really close. But like I said, technically, microscopically ahead. Oh my goodness! Forces another sell on both of those. Arilou selling the farms literally as the crit little indicator pops up. So Arilou just saving face as much as he possibly can, but Urbane taking a bit of a timing lead here. And Arilou is trying to expand, so is Urbane Olive going to do the Squirrel Mole thing again? He's got a tiny bit of an edge, so he has a little opportunity. Going into 3 Squirrel Warrens, and he can follow that up with a couple of Mole Warrens and really make Arilou sweat here. It's not quite the same thing as last game, where Arilou kind of started off slightly ahead. So let's see. Arilou showing off his APM potential. No kidding. More like his timing knowledge. It's like the fighting game version of APM is like the perfect timings. Yeah, I mean, yeah, if Urbane Olive micros correctly here, he will straight up win. He has a slight edge, and Arilou tried to expand. So you can go try to snipe the expansion and get your free 60 food, or you can ignore it and go for the kill. I think the smarter choice is going to put pressure, putting pressure on this mill. A mole takes damage, that's fine. He can be patient. He can wait for his extra mole to pop out. Pressuring this mill. Arilou's going to have to sack it. All right, here comes the fight. Targeting the squirrels at the moment. Both sides kind of, once your moles get on top of your opponent's squirrels, that's what you want to target. So Olive takes the better fight and kills the mill, and he's going to try to, I think this is an overextension. Yeah, he definitely lost a couple extra units there, for 3 extra units for free. That's an overextension, so he backs up. He's still slightly ahead, but you got to be careful not to overextend after a lead like that. You got to rally your troops first. Players love to regroup, and I'm going to pause here for a second. This is important. This happened a lot this series. Players love to regroup and try to attack in again after losing a fight, which is a tempting mistake to make. Once you've lost a fight, you can't regroup and attack. And they like to, after winning a fight, continue to attack, which is also a mistake because overextensions happen like in 50% of games in Tooth and Tail. What you need to do is if you lose a fight, you back up and you defend or do something else and hope your opponent overextends. And if you win a fight, then you can back up and regroup and continue to attack. That's the thing. So your instincts are completely reversed. Urbane Olive won the fight, killed the mill, and then he needed to back up and regroup. Instead, he overextended. So it's a slight critique, and I've done it too. We've all done it. I just want to throw that out there. All right. Arilou is going to try to push in and take out these forward Mole Warrens, but Urbane Olive has rallied at this point, and because he's still ahead, he's able to push back the army. Now let's count Warrens. 12 and 9 to 6 and 12. So Urbane Olive has the bigger army and the better army, and he has mines for this. So as long as he continues to put pressure on, he should be able to win this game. It's fairly straightforward as long as he doesn't overextend. You want to play along the edges, go for picks, see if you can pick off moles. You don't want to sit too long within pig fire because you start to lose your army lead there. But this is a pretty straightforward numbers game at this point. We've got a couple of pigs firing, so right now this is the point where Olive has won a fight and he needs to back up and not overextend. He can kill a pig, yes, but you just have to be really careful. All right, and it looks like Urbane Olive actually has enough that despite the principle, he's able to get even more damage. So now he is backing up, going to take a few losses, but Arilou is down to 5 farms, so it doesn't matter. The mine goes off, and the squirrel shot finishes that mole off, so that was worth it. Sasha in the chat saying if you get a small lead, you can tech into cams. I agree. So Squirrel Mole cam beats Squirrel Mole, so if you are able to, in a Squirrel Mole fight, get a small lead and be safe to tech, then if you tech into cams, yes, I agree. It's a really solid thing that not a lot of players think about, but this works as well. Olive is going to attack in again, this time with even more overwhelming numbers and the eco to back it up, and this should be game. Olive is going to take game 3 and pull ahead again. This is a really great series between these two. Let's see game 4. Yeah, I agree. 60 food isn't quite enough to push into a base, depending. But the minute Arilou missteps and tries to get greedy, you can do it. All right. Urbane Olive on match point. The champion of Intermediate with a lead yet again against Arilou, who is the premier champion in the red here. Both players sticking with the same deck again. Let's see if Urbane Olive can punish some greed like last game or go for the boar like game 1. I'd love to see a replay of game 1. That was absolutely incredible as far as board games go. All right. I do want to point out Urbane Olive has queued a farm and Arilou has not, so that's when we get to see potential mole play here. Nope. Okay, so he does actually just go back and buy that farm. So you can see, because Arilou is giving himself moments for potential better scouting and or mole put pressure, all of it is, like, again, microscopically ahead in the farm lead, which literally doesn't matter, but I'm pointing it out anyway because that's the only difference in their build so far. Let's take a look at this map. Ooh, Olive is going to go for an 8 farm expand. Those are really uncommon these days, especially with moles being the way they are. If Arilou wanted to mole push this, he could, and he would win in the exact same way that Urbane Olive won last game. It's pretty straightforward in these squall situations. But Arilou does not scout this base, and he goes for an expansion of his own anyway. So if you've got an 8 farm expand into Warrens versus an 8 farm Warrens into expand, the one who got the expansion up first is ahead. So Urbane Olive actually has a superior position here. Arilou is going to take that position and go into tech instead. He's going to get cams. So if you're slightly behind like this in some kind of tempo situation like eco, one thing you can do to try to catch back up is make the game asymmetrical by being the person to tech. And Urbane Olive is having none of it. He's going to tech as well. He wants to stay even with Arilou in every way except being ahead with farms. Sorry if that doesn't make any sense. I'm not doing a great job at explaining it. Bottom line, they're very even. Urbane Olive is slightly ahead in his eco, and Arilou is slightly ahead in his tech, and I'd rather be the person who's ahead in eco. Now, Arilou actually sells down to 1 Squirrel Warren and farms up as a means of catching up, and it's going to work. Urbane Olive sells down to 2 Squirrel Warrens and farms up in response. Let's see. It looks like a cam is moving out on the map here. I think Olive knew exactly what was up. It looks like he figured out what Arilou was trying to do, so he positioned his squirrels there at his expansion. He's going to have his cams at his main base and his squirrels at his expansion, so there are no risks of Arilou doing any cam shenanigans. So Olive is actually playing his heart out. He's playing really, really well this game. Absolutely a premier player level of playing here. Now, Urbane Olive is going up to the 16 farms. He's diversified his army into a little bit of moles, which is really nice. Arilou is going to go for a second Cam Warren instead. But again, I just like Urbane Olive's position slightly better here. There's nothing else to it. I mean, it's microscopic, so like it wouldn't take much for Arilou to catch back up again. Ooh, there's a backdoor. Very nice. All right, looks like there's going to be some mines. Spotting and damage mines to watch out for cam shenanigans. Olive is playing really safe, and he drops the boar. Arilou is going into mass tier 2, so there's a slight chance of a timing attack here. If he scouts the boar right away, he's going to have a lot of tier 2. And Olive would have to rely on mines and micro to hold off this cam push. An important piece of this push is the fact that he's going to have skunks. Arilou will have skunks, which is really going to be helpful against a squirrel-based defense. What the heck is Urbane Olive doing floating so much food? He's selling down his tier 1 to try to get a bunch of tier 2, but Arilou is going for a timing push here. Urbane Olive is going into a full, like, boar timing with all of the mass falcons you can get, but Arilou is just going to straight kill him. This is going to be too much for Olive to hold. He's going to lose his expansion. The mass falcon there was actually far too greedy from Urbane Olive. He needed to have a lot of squirrels and moles to hold this push. Now, Olive has lost the mill. He's going to have to just eat the loss and try to counter push with his boar. That Falcon Warren is another casualty. The skunk gas is incredible here in these chokes. Can Olive hold on just long enough to get this boar out? I don't think so. He's lost a lot of Falcon Warrens as well. All of Urbane's army is going down. His economy is in shambles. He has a couple of falcons, so he's going to have like something to counter push with, but I think Arilou can hold. 6 cams is not efficient against a boar, but you can, or 4 cams now, you can lock down a boar and kill it with 4 cams. Again, it's inefficient, but when you're an entire base ahead, I would love to be Arilou now and inefficiently kill a boar. As long as you can keep it off of your base. So Olive has this one shot. Why is he selling down his squirrels? Olive, I think Olive needs to just kill right now, and he's going to go for a base trade. And the armies may meet in the middle here. I think Arilou's got this. The snakes can tag the boar, and that's going to be it. Yep, 4 tags, the boar is going to go down. We're going to have an army trade with Arilou having the extra eco. Not even an army trade. Arilou just has an army left over, so Arilou with a killer timing push before the boar was out, and Urbane Olive with just a little bit too much tier 2 greed along with that boar. He didn't recognize Arilou's timing threat, and so Arilou takes it down. Yeah, the way I see it, Sasha, is boar is efficient against large numbers of cams because you can trade the boar for a lot of cams. I guess the way I see it is 2 cams is a counter to boar because you can lock it down. But 4 cams is maybe better for boar, and 6 cams is definitely better for boar. That's my thought anyway. Neither one really hard counters the other. It's kind of a soft situation either way. A soft counter either way. Oh. Can we see game 5? Here we go. Game 5. We have tied it up, and we're going all the way to the end of the series here. Urbane Olive taking a lead in the early game last game with that macro, and just kind of, again, blinking for like a second, and Arilou comes in and snipes his second base. So killer instinct from our pro here. Let's see how this game is going to look out. We have the same decks again, so we're really getting a deep dive into this matchup. I like Arilou's side of the map a little bit better. You don't really want to be surrounded by water, but you can make it work. It's definitely not a unwinnable position at all. I just would feel more comfortable as the Arilou player in the red here at the top of the map. I know I have walls at my back. I've got a fairly small choke. You do have to expand forward here as Arilou, whereas Olive can kind of expand to the side, so we'll have to see here. There's technically a back door, but you'd have to go through a lot of water. So if Olive can get his expansion up here and then mine up a little bit there, I think he will be just fine. It's just a little bit uncomfortable. Alright, pretty straightforward so far. We've got 8 farm 2 Warren, 8 farm 1 Warren tier 2. Arilou going for that tier 2. Now, unlike the skunk first, I don't think Olive's going to be able to punish this. You can't punish a cam first with Squirrel Mole the same way that you can punish a skunk first. Because a cam by itself is actually a good fighting unit, whereas a skunk by itself, not so much. So I'm worried that Olive is going to... Oh, alright, never mind. Worries are over. Olive is going to go for a super quick... one base boar rush. Arilou, if he sees the boar right away, he'll just do a cam Squirrel Mole and kill. He'll just win instantly. And he sees the boar. I think he can just attack and kill with the timing push right here. Olive is trying to move his mines around so that they're not scouted, but this is not going to work. I think Olive's dead. Against any other player, I'd say Olive has a chance, because as Arilou, you have to execute well, you have to be aggressive enough. But Arilou is going to know exactly what to do. I think Olive's dead. He's got a few squirrels and a few mines against a squirrel cam mole timing push. If Urbane Olive spams moles. Yeah, he didn't, though. He does have a lot of squirrels and there are small chokes, so the mines are going to be very effective here. But that boar is supply blocked, and Arilou is just massing up this really killer comp. This is like the best bruising timing comp. Now, those mines were pretty decent. One Warren is down already. Urbane Olive needs every squirrel Warren he can get. He can afford to sack a pig or two. Yep, if he loses one pig, he's fine. Those mines were really good. All right. The boar is still supply blocked, so he has to sell down to get it. And what does Arilou do now? Like I said, you can't, if you lose a fight, you can't regroup and attack. Another player might panic and be tempted to just attack in again, but Arilou knows he can't win another fight. If Arilou attacked again, he would lose even harder. So I guess I take it back. I thought that was going to be a pretty straightforward smash, but Olive holds with some good mines and some good positioning. He loses a pig, but that's fine because he's going to have a boar push coming out. Arilou is going to have to rely on falcons. It's worth noting that Urbane Olive's army, the moles and the boar, are a big piece of the army, and neither of them can shoot up. He only has 9 squirrels, and if Arilou can kill Olive's squirrels, then the falcons will become invincible and will hold. If that makes sense. So, yes, Arilou can't win unless base race, or if Arilou snipes all of Urbane Olive's squirrels and Olive does not target the falcons, then Arilou can win that way as well. So all Olive has to do right here, he's even got a base trade set up, so Olive knows that he could lose to a base trade and that's it. So all he has to do is focus the falcons and he wins. If he loses his commander, okay, one falcon is going down, good. See, if Arilou is focusing the squirrels are all dead, so that falcon actually gets to defend. See what I mean? As Olive, you absolutely had to focus those falcons first. Having said that, several Warrens went down, several pigs went down, and Olive just has to hold the counter push here. His second boar is on the way, and we all know that a second boar hurts more than a single boar. But look at Olive with 3 squirrels. The boar needed to kill more Warrens, yes, but more importantly, I think Olive absolutely needed to focus the falcons. That was the only win condition Arilou had left, especially with the base trade mill over there. So Arilou is going to take the series here. That was an incredible series between these two players. I am delighted to have been able to cast that. Thank you to both of them.